Welcome back, guys, into the Paladins Pro Circuit. I'm Fawn the Legend, joined here by my man, Gore Miser, ready to go into the Brazilian bracket, and I'm excited for the Brazilian games today because of the fact that we've got some notable names on both of these teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited, not only just to be able to kick it off again, man. I've just been missing Paladins. It's been months. But also to see these teams that are going to be coming through. Notably, we're watching today Parallax Gaming and Carnage Gaming, as you had mentioned. And those were kind of the two names everyone had on the tip of their tongue throughout Phase 1. In Control, I think Fatal Ambition had a lot to prove, and I think they're going to have an incredible phase this time around as well. But these were the two that not only rose to the top, but were always challenging each other. Parallax got far and away ahead with a lead, so this is their chance to maybe catch up, mainly because there have been some changes. Freeze God is no longer there for Parallax.
Right, exactly. But the fact that Freeze God isn't there, of course, you have to be able to try and find somebody that can end up filling his shoes, right? And the person that did fill his shoes, really, really powerful player. I'm super excited to see that player, especially in action. But we're going to take a look at the maps to see where it is where we're going to go first. And that's going to end up being Jaguar Falls, which is one of my favorite maps. We were just talking about what maps we like anyway.
We were sitting back and I was just like, Jaguar Falls might be my favorite map. And then I immediately listed off, I think, 7 more maps that I really, really enjoyed. So either way, it is a very good one. Just because of the fact that it does fall in that standard, in my mind, of something that is equal foot, it is also a place where we've seen things flourish. I was joking with you about it because I was like, Fawn, I've got bad news for you. Moji getting nerfed only means that when we're in Brazil and we're on Jag Falls, we won't get to see her anymore. And this is maybe the testament to that, right? We get to find out. Maybe we'll find it out even more so when King Kaiser finally comes back and plays. But as of right now, this is the one map that she had going for her, and I don't know if we're going to see her, man.
Yeah, unfortunate for me, honestly, and all of the other 2 Moji stands that are out there, right? I mean, we'll come back in droves one day, man. Maybe she'll get buffed, maybe she'll be a little bit better of a pick, but these picks are already pretty good in terms of the ban column as well. I mean, Atlas, Rom, Bomb King, those 3 being off of the board means that these guys have some plans in mind for sure. Those are some pretty strong picks right now.
I mean, we were talking about it earlier because we saw in the last set when it was, Grover, Inara, Bomb King on Jag Falls, and I just sat back and I said, Fawn, if they lose this game with the trifecta of Jag Falls, then I don't know what to do. So I think Carnage getting rid of that Bomb King, specifically targeting out the blaster that has moved from Carnage now to Parallax, which is a Spexy, who's filling in for Freeze's empty spot there now as the blaster. It's going to be interesting, but Mitau, this is where my mind is going for him. Parallax, you've got 2 ex-teammates now on Carnage with Rachel jumping in, so maybe there's something to be said there. Maybe I just want to see what they're going to do, because Brazil's meta, I should say, has always been just slightly tweaked from Europe and slightly tweaked from NA. It's always been a little different, but so far, Ashe, Corvus, Zen, they're all popular.
Yeah, I mean, Rachel being back at least on these teams is very, very interesting, because it would be really cool to see like sort of former SSG teammates going up against one another, right? But we won't be able to see the full roster being applied here. Ashe and Grover are what's going to be on the side of Parallax, while Corvus was left open, and Zen is going to be the flank for this situation. Now, that's going to be really strong, Gore. At least that's what I feel like, especially in these close quarters.
Yeah, I think that as a combo, Zen honestly should have a lot of trouble dying, right? I mean, Jag Falls was already a really good map for him, along with his kit, made it very difficult to lock him down. Now you get some good healing from the Corvus right beside him, as well as some good setup potential, I think, from this Corvus. And Carnage Gaming, so far in their damage, especially with that Cassie added on, I think it's going to do really well on this map. The only issue I have is that Inara, Grover, even Ashe to that extent, I think are 2 of the best front lines that you can have on this map, with one of the best, if not the best, support you can have on this map, maybe rivaling something like a Genos that can heal through walls. Grover's ability to sustain people on the side fight, near statue, on the point fight, through walls, all in between, it just escalates him in my mind and makes it a lot easier for Parallax here.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that sustainability that Parallax has will be able to outdo the seemingly triple DPS comp it is that they have on the side of Carnage Gaming, right? Coupled, or at least I should say supported by literally a Corvus, that's really, really dangerous to try and bring that out especially. But the Vivian, do you feel like that could sort of put a stop to what aggression they might have on the side of Carnage?
I've always loved Vivian on this map, and I think she is really great at this. Right? Leon's known as the anti-flank, but Vivian, in my mind, is more of just like a wall. So, like, Leon will kill you for flanking. Vivian just won't move and won't die. Like, you'll just kind of run into her. Maybe you'll be able to find it. I think Talus actually has a pretty interesting matchup there. Again, you shoot her in her toes, then, you don't have to deal with that shield. Yeah. But they're going to have a lot to burn through in that aspect. And it was always one of those jokes I used to make that she was kind of just baby Ruckus when she came into map styles, specifically like she plays on Jag Falls. So I think she can hold her own.
Right, I feel the same way as well. I mean, we've seen Vivian being locked in on a bunch of different compositions, whether you're tuning in for the PCML Minor League or you're tuning in today. Vivian is definitely a pick that seems to be extremely strong, but that's enough of the talking. Jaguar Falls. I'm super excited to see this match for sure. And pretty much standard talent choices, right, Nor?
Yeah, so far, I mean, Big Game was kind of the one I was looking at specifically for Cassie, is where she was going to go with it. Just because I wondered if she wanted to try and take down some of these tanks. It's one of those great counters for, I would argue, Vivian, because you can do exactly what Rachao's doing here. You go into the Wrecker. Maybe you're not going to get the same bonus that you would if it was something like a Ruckus where you burst his shield, then burst him, but I still think that counter exists there, so Spexy's going to have to be very careful with where Rachao is putting his damage, and of course his own positioning to make sure he doesn't step too far, because if you're having to worry about the Cassie that's across the way from you, the Talus on your left, and then the Zen on your right, someone's going to get through.
Already, the first few crossbow bolts being shot by Rachao. It's going to find a couple marks here and there, but no one's going to make any concrete plays. Everyone's trying to find the damage to sink into the opposing side. Vivian finding that damage directly into the barricade and the barrack to be able to try and make sure that he can't stand on point for as long as possible. But Inara's the one that's actually going to end up being the one on the receiving end here, taking a lot of the damage from a bunch of different targets. Dintik's going to find that first blood directly onto Rachao, and that's going to be a good first blood for the boys in blue.
And I just love how Parallax are playing this. I think their draft permits them to take control of this objective exactly as they're doing it. Kronz can just walk up to the point. I mean, what's Barrett going to do? Die on him? There's nothing he can do to get aggressive here, especially with a Vivian watching over him. And that enables this Ashe to get aggressive, lead the way, either for an Eevee or for Vivian, whoever wants to get aggressive. And now it's 90-30 with barely any clapback from Carnage.
Yeah, Barrett's going to be the one sitting on point, but exactly like you were saying before, what's he going to do? Die, and die he shall. Scooter's going to be taken apart by Dintik and the rest of the team on Parallax as well. Just plugging in a bunch of damage onto him when the rest of his teammates weren't really there. Govern's there. Govern is there, and Talus is going to be taken down as well. Parallax is going to find that first score for them on Jaguar Falls.
I honestly think it's just awkward. Barrack right now is in such a weird area where he can simultaneously be one of the best tanks you can play and one of the worst tanks you can play, just depending on what the other team is drafting around and how. I think there's a lot of factors on your side as well, but there's so much that could maybe make it easier for them on the side of Carnage. But this solo tank Barrack he's just going to struggle. I mean, you're already against somebody who tears down shields in the Vivian. You're easy to ring a headshot on. I feel like their point fight might not be their strong suit unless Talus, Cassie, or Zen can just have an absolute pop-off of a moment.
Yeah, you already see it right here. You mentioned the Zen, and he's going to end up getting caught out by a Spexy on the Vivian, and another one of his teammates that is trying to come around and control this side right here. Ashe used the shoulder bash, get himself a DR, but just a little bit of a misclick or misuse of the ability. The assert dominance, though, can't say the same for that. The kinetic burst is ready to go. There's a lot of being plugged into Cassie. Midtown with a nice direct shot directly onto the combat rolling Rachao. Going to find a mark on him, and that's going to be a kill. Zen's already pretty low, which means Ares is going to get taken care of as well. They're not going to give up any ground here, but they've definitely found the control they've needed to turn this fight around.
I'm actually surprised to see it slow down as much as it has here for Parallax. Just difficulty breaking around the corner. With Midtown going, I honestly take them a little bit longer. You still have those two front lines that can help kind of break through this barrier, but without anybody to really harass the back line, there's not much you can do, and much like you would expect, this Talus, this Zen, are pulling the eyes of the tanks away from the objective, making it a lot more difficult to push this payload forward because you constantly have to be worried. Where's the damage coming from? Where are they going to be next? And so this is going to be the big moment right now at that seismic crash.
Yeah, Seismic Crash catches 2, and you already found 1 body. Can you find the next? Midtown with a nice little flick, direct shot directly onto Govern. He's taken down, and so is Scooter with the Spexy on the double, and Dintig making sure that he catches a 4th body as the cart is rolling around right from under the bridge and is now going to crest and see if they can try and make sure that they can cash this point in for a 2nd point on Jaguar Falls. Only time will tell as Dintig is trying to catch 2 on the side. Almost got knocked off there by that disengaged bolt, but he's going to make sure that he's still alive at the end of the day.
And just being able to find a kill right there, 30 seconds left. I don't know if they need it, Fawn. And they don't. I mean, it happens so fast for them that it comes through. I think that Carnage, again, Scooter just has a difficult game in front of him. And unfortunately, you know, you're relying very heavily on Rachao, on Ares to maybe pop off. Same thing for Gervin. And they're not really hitting the marks right now. I mean, 0-5, 1-5. There's only so much wording I can do to move around the numbers that are on the screen, and unfortunately, a combined 1-10 on 2 of your carries is not in the world you want to be in. Meanwhile, a couple of members of Parallax going undying here, and streaks blazing for all but Mitau. I think you're going to be more than comfortable and confident on this next point fight. Honestly, it just feels like their draft plays better to the map than what we see out of Carnage. A lot of pressure, I think, onto the Zen, onto this Cassie, to turn it around now, or else this is going to be a 4-0.
Well, already, we already see that Spexy's already in a good enough, comfortable spot to be able to plug some shots into the barricade, but I don't think that's going to be enough to try and find a pick. They are creating tons of pressure, though, just off of their grouping, their positioning as well. Ares tries to go around the side, gets countered. The Vivian shots do. Nice cripple axe immediately. Oh, the chef's piece. Mamma mia, what a beautiful cripple axe. Immediately, as soon as he finds it, 2 bodies are picked up, and that's a full-on team wipe and control from Parallax. My goodness, you can't ask for a better situation than that.
Fun, I'm going to have nightmares about that. That's going to be happening to me in my dreams tonight. I'm going to get locked out by the perfect cripple axe in front of a Vivian. And there's nothing you can do after that. I mean, that is the play, right? I mean, there's no way anything else happens. Yeah, other people pick up those kills, but that axe really solidifies it. Now you have to throw bodies. You already wasted 1 ult trying to get in here and get the touch, and you've got this overtime. I'm surprised Carnage are still fighting as well as they are.
Put down the Warder Sphere. And Barrett can only live for so much longer. Mitau puts his stop to that as he has very little health left, and a nice direct shot will be the one that takes him out. 3 more bodies join the pile of corpses that Carnage Gaming have building up on their side, honestly. And it's going to be hard for them to try and fight back. I mean, what do they do here, Gore? I mean, they've been losing the mid-fight. They can't really seem to hold much of the size because of their grouping. How do you respond?
Honestly, I think a lot is dependent on this next Dome Shield. It's 73%. You're going to have time to charge it up, although you do have to be very proactive to get to that point because Parallax are not letting off the gas right now. Maybe you have something come from the Zen if he can find a good pick that at least delays it, but the turnaround will be just dependent on this Barrack finding something big, and unfortunately he's been the one getting bullied the most.
Ooh. Well, it's a good 1-for-1 trade. It could be a good start, but it doesn't seem like it's going to end any better as Scooter's going to get the one. Scooter, is going to be the one taken out. And that's a lot of time that is going to be spent pushing that cart that Carnage can't contest because Barrack isn't there. Can they even? Talus tries to commit to that, does it? And he's going to be able to at least buy a little bit of time for him to make it on point. That's another 1-for-1 trade. How will it end this time? Will the numbers shift? It will. Dintic catches a double, assert dominance to end it, and Expexy finds a 3rd. That's Parallax Gaming dusting their hands off and saying, easy first game.
If you thought this team was going to look any worse without Freeze God, I guess that's going to go ahead and scrub that idea from your mind. I mean, again, constant aggression from them, but also at the very end, I mean, I had mentioned, hey, if I'm looking at Scooter's play, can he get his ult up in time? And the answer was no. He got into the 90s for percentage, but that was the turnaround. That was the moment. Once he died to Ashe the first time, made it a lot easier to come in and clean up the rest of the zone you needed. I mean, 1-7, 2-9, 2-9 there at the very bottom. Carnage Gaming just got swept under the rug there for Parallax. So I'm hoping that it was just, you know, this draft error. We've been seeing a lot of push and pull, at least so far today, between the triple DPS and the double tank that we would have that I would typically call standard. But when you have someone hitting cripple axes like Outlander did right there, there's not much you can do against it if you just don't have somebody to deter the attack.
Yeah, I think you put it so perfectly earlier, Gore, was the fact is that what is Barrett going to do when he gets on point? Just die? And that's literally what kept happening every time, right? It was every situation that he tried to find some space to be created or try to contest on the point. Everybody was looking at him. And and you could argue whether that's going to be because of the Vivian or if that's because of the amount of pressure that these tanks have with the Grover or not. And still, it's going to be really, really important that you try and take what you learned from last time and adapt that situation.
Yeah, it is, I think, also worth noting that, Jack Falls, especially in a draft like that, it gets out of hand really quickly. This is another map, Frog Isle, where that exact kind of thing can happen. I mean, you can make one slip-up, and now all of a sudden you're down 3 points, and you're wondering how you got here, right? You're trying to flash back, like, what was the moment that really brought us down? So it's two very 4-0-able maps, which is something that can be said. I think Carnage having first pick here, being able to maybe control the flow of the game a little bit better, can pull this back just as hard, maybe if not harder and faster than what we just saw out of Parallax.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to get rid of both of the snipers, though. Cadessa and Strix are both gone, while Atlas is sitting on the banned column of Parallax. Ash is going to be banned instead, which means that we have quite a few options open, just like the Corvus from last time, and this time Rom's in the playing field. How do you feel like he'll fare on Frog Isle?
Honestly, I don't know how much you want him. The problem I think that Rom would have specifically for Frog Isle, it's just that it's nice and wide open, and yeah, he's pretty tanky.
Right.
He can heal himself. He can maybe withstand it all, and there's a lot of little tiny bits of cover, but he definitely feels to me like he would need someone beside him, right? He's not going to be your main tank, at least not in my eyes. So maybe you could swing a little bit later, grab a Rom here, and pick up an Inara later if you want it, or maybe perhaps give both of them up and just hope that the other one doesn't fall away, because there's a lot of good DPS on this map that will then make up for whatever tank, problems, I guess, that you have.
Right. Exactly. Shaolin is going to be locked in on the side of Parallax, which means that possibility of Rom is not as prominent as before with the Cripple Arrow. Corvus is going to be locked in, but Barrick on the side of Carnage Gaming, coupled with the Maeve. How do you feel about that so far?
Well, he was definitely locked in, so I can say that. He definitely, there's definitely a Barrick in the game. The problem is, and I've been feeling this way since his big nerfs, in Phase 1? I mean, months and months and months ago that he finally got hit by it, where he just doesn't stand up the same way some of these other tanks do now. And while I think he can still provide a lot to the team, it just doesn't hit the same way. Makoa, though, is definitely in my eyes. Leviathan specifically, now that whenever you're running that, when you ult, you get the reset cooldowns. I think the biggest problem, especially at the high level, but I think for everyone who played Makoa, was, hey, I ulted, but I don't have my shell spin and I don't have my dredge anchor, so there's no way to close the gap between me and you. And now I'm melee, so of course I'm not going to be able to hit you. But now getting that reset, I think, changes the game. You can pull someone in, get the kill, ult, shell spin, pull someone in. Like, you can keep the chain going, and I think that's going to make him a little bit more deadly.
Well, Tiberius is going to be locked in. We're looking a little bit at the double flank here, which opens up a lot of possibilities, which means that Shaolin may not be able to be as still as he might want to be in this situation, having to deal with both Maeve and Tiberius. Inara is going to be the tank of Parallax, and Genos is what's going to close out Carnage Gaming's draft. Genos versus Corvus, how do you feel with these respective compositions, despite Parallax not having locked in the last thing yet?
Man, the Tiberius is a proving ground for me. We haven't seen him be very successful so far, like just this year in general, and I think with the Genos behind him, it could maybe make a difference, but it really is going to be difficult for him. I think having to deal with projectiles both between him and Maeve, even though this is a stellar map for Maeve, against an Andro and a Leon, it's going to start to skew a little bit more in favor of Parallax Gaming. So the Genos, his entire performance is maybe more dependent on how well his DPS does than anything else here.
Well, hopefully they can actually make this one work out for him. Running a double flank means that you're trying to play aggressive in the first place, so Genos can only do what the best it is that he possibly can. Corvus might have to try a little less harder, honestly, but here we are in Frog Isle, and I'm very interested to see how this Shaolin is going to end up playing out, because I've seen Shaolin when they want to stop mobility. In this situation, Makoa and Barrick, sure, they have dashes, but I don't know how they'll fare against the Shaolin in this situation.
Yeah, him and Leon honestly just kind of feel like they are anti-DPS for Carnage more than they are get anything done, right? Like, it almost feels like their entire goal here is, okay, let's stop Maeve, let's stop Tiberius, and then everything else at that point should just line up for us. So I'm excited to see what Aspexy does, but I think I'm more excited for this Andro just because of him maybe being a linchpin in success.
Ooh. Well, first blood, and you got the second blood soon after that. 2 targets already down out, and poor Barrick, same situation as last time, gets caught out on the point alone as the DPS have been losing the fights on the side, and Genos is the last one that they dust their hands off of. If you're Parallax Gaming, my oh my, already an aggressive zone and percentage garner more and more on the point. Ares just came out of spawn and he died almost instantly once again, tossing out another cripple arrow to see if he could at least put a stamp on that Maeve, keep her from moving as freely. But I don't know, man. I mean, he's just getting body blocked. Like, I don't know what to say. That's literally what just happened. They got the first point.
Yeah, that's just good from Parallax. I mean, I think top to bottom, it just kind of was, how do we break this shell? And then they cracked it and demolished it, threw it out. Yeah. They were done with whatever Carnage had in retaliation. I think, unfortunately, you're in this awkward spot. I mean, who are you going to move forward with? I think Makoa and Maeve want to run forward on ramp, but then, like you said, it leaves this poor Barrick alone on the point. Again, it was the same problem that they had on Jack Falls. And unfortunately, this time, the Makoa, the Maeve, didn't necessarily get to make anything happen. They kept Andro preoccupied for a little bit, but once they were gone, it made it so much easier to then collapse in on either them or onto the Tiberius and just give them trouble all the way from the top for Carnage Gaming.
They're at least able to get the pick on the Androxus, which makes it a little bit easier for them, which means that they put a damper in their aggression a little bit as you see them get the immediate kill onto mid-tower, at least a little bit after the fact that Andro went down, but Ares may have bit off a little bit more than he can chew. Seems to be a little bit of a disconnect as both him and Rachao are up a little bit too far. Everyone else sort of just sitting back and waiting in the miss. And this allows Parallax to retake the payload that they had lost for about, like, what, 5 milliseconds?
Yeah, they were, again, maybe technically off of the payload there for a little bit, but it just feels like they're running the smooth Corvus, with a big ult here, should be able to help convert this one for his team.
Yeah, already the Enlightenment to follow through, and they find the Makoa really, really low, tries to use the Ancient Rage, but it's not going to be in enough time. Kills him a little bit before the startup. Cripple Arrow as well. Now Maeve's just slow moving as Barrett is getting ripped apart directly on the point. Shaolin, Aspexy finds it in his own right to take matters into his own hands and kills Ares. Scooter gets taken down, and that's a 2-0 already for Parallax Gaming.
And again, 3 members that haven't died. The perfect support slash line there for Outlander. 0-0 and 13 that's coming in. And if you're only able to get rid of Dintic and Mitao, Aspexy's still going to be able to find shots, I think, showcasing how well Shaolin, or how good Shaolin is at getting away. And just the way that Kranz is playing, Inara is kind of the last one on your checklist of people we need to deal with, maybe next to that Corvus. And I still think maybe even below the Corvus. Unfortunately, there's not much Scooter can do in a position like this unless Rachao and Gervin, make big plays. I think they have that potential, though. Ancient Rage available, Midnight available, Ramp should be yours here. There's only one ult. It's the Seismic Crash Up for Parallax Gaming. But with your 3, at least 2 of those are game changers on the side of Carnage.
Already, Barrick is playing a little bit more passive than last time, not immediately going to point, but the seismic crash, you mentioned it before, and it doesn't find its stun, actually gets blocked by the shell spin. Barrick tries to find an opportunity. This time they want to be the aggressors. They knew that Maeve and the rest of them were moving on the side, but Ares still gets taken down despite that. One of them being gone while they were trying to put as much pressure as possible. That just puts Scooter in a bad spot. Now Maeve's the next one to go down too. That's already 3 gone. Ancient Rage in the back line, but what does that matter? You're already picked off. The rest of your teammates are there too. They're gone. 69% on the point for Parallax, and a good zone.
Now, I can't think of a better way to word this, but Parallax Gaming could not have done more for Carnage to let them have the objective there, really.
Very true.
You miss your seismic crash, everyone's pushed off. I think it's just the way Carnage tried to approach the fight. Unfortunately, again, Scooter gets left alone. You have comeback mechanic, and they were dancing around the objective trying to get more aggression than they really could afford for Carnage. And unfortunately, they didn't even get to capitalize on the comeback mechanic enabled for them, let alone the fact that these ults were whiffed by Parallax. You have Midnight, which is a great space opener, but it all just fell apart.
Oh man, uses the cursed arm to try and follow things through Corvus just to get people off of point and make sure they can start their aggression. And you see it paid off in dividends as one after the other they just keep on falling. My goodness, I don't really know what to even say about this one. That's what's happening. They're dying. They're just getting killed time and time and time again. They keep trying to retake, keep trying to take a different strategy, but they haven't had the time to adapt to anything.
You know, Fawn, one thing seems to be ringing true right now, and it's just that at base level, no matter what, it's still a shooter here for Paladins. And Parallax Gaming,
Correct.
They're just clicking heads. They are not stopping.
Yeah. It's just that you would have thought they were in practice range if you didn't have the names there up at the top. I mean, my goodness, Parallax Gaming 2-0 in terms of set. I mean, what do you talk about there? I mean, like you said it perfectly. They were just clicking heads the entire time. They didn't have a chance to adapt on the side.
A lot of that game fell apart for me, specifically when Inara ran down Barrick and no one could do anything about it. Like, when that starts to happen, look, I love Inara, and I love Barrick. I'm a frontline main through and through. But if you have an Inara that is going unanswered, chasing down the other front line, you're screaming, where is my team? I think Scooter in that moment is looking for any and all assistance he can get. And it just never came through. I mean, look at it. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but Rachao hit 15K. He's barely 4,000 ahead of Crimson. I expect a little more from the Makoa where it was picked. I think that they're relying pretty heavily on some of these other... well, their front line specifically making a lot of space, and it just didn't come to fruition. The damage numbers look good for them otherwise, but the kill conversion for them, it was abysmal. They could get people low, they could poke them down, but they couldn't finalize any of those hits. And when they did, I mean, you saw they killed Andro once, and it gave some space back to Carnage Gaming. And then since that point, they couldn't take care of him, and everything just continually went in favor of Parallax.
I think you said for you it was when Inara ran down Barrick and Barrick couldn't get any sort of assistance whatsoever that sort of decided it. For me, it was definitely the situation of Makoa and Maeve going around on the side by Danger and pushing into them. Barrick tries to follow up and they still lose the fight despite all that. I mean, it was at that moment that I was like, man, this is unfortunate. And then you see here, like even in the replay, you see one of them getting a kill, one of them being the prioritization and the focus, but then you see the kill feed just pop up with everybody else too. So they're firing on all cylinders. If you're Parallax, you're feeling good. If you're Carnage, you might be a little bit more than tilted at this point. I mean, maybe that's why you have the Ice Mines pick.
Yeah, this is the... what did I used to love calling it, and still probably will always call it? The great equalizer for a lot of these teams and that path. In years of Paladins, Ice Mines is the #1 map #3 that we ever go to, right? It is always the, I've just been 2-0'd, I need to slow this down, let's go to Ice Mines to try and stop it. I think Frozen Guard probably deserves more merit, but the problem is a lot of teams figured out Frozen Guard, so you can't do it. Other side of that coin, a lot of teams have figured out Ice Mines, so it's not the same, hey, don't worry, we'll just wait until we're at 3-3 point fight, and we'll just draft for that, because if you draft for that now, teams just roll over you whenever it comes to a conversion. Right. People have figured out the better ways to approach that, and admittedly, it's just how they crack that shell. I think Parallax Gaming, it depends very heavily on their draft, same thing for Carnage, but with the way they've been playing, they're one of those teams I think I could very easily pin as a 4-0 on Ice Mines if they want.
Here.
Well, Carnage gave them a little bit more respect this time around in the form of banning Sha Lin, trying to give a little bit of a nod to his Spexy, just being like, okay, well, maybe we don't want to let him get Sha Lin this go around. Man was popping off almost in its entirety. And Nars, whose Carnage Gaming is going to be locked in first, though. And Victor is going to be the response on Parallax Gaming. We've seen the Vivian. We haven't really seen as much of the Victor. Why do you think that is, Gore?
Well, so it really does come down to where their lifesteal was. So I was reading up on the patch, making sure I had everything in order here. And right, Victor, this is a good map for him. But he kind of fell off hard compared to what we used to see. And it is just because his lifesteal card in his kit got nerfed from 8% every time you level it to 5%, right? So 40 at max rank, where a lot of people ran it down to 25 at max rank. And I was talking to Kresnik earlier, and he said specifically if you get Life Rip 2 and you're running that card, you can get up to almost 40 again, but you have to invest the credits in the life rip too. It takes time to get there.
Right.
So he just doesn't have the same self-sustain. That being said, this map, you know it's going to go long, so if you want that self-sustain, you're going to be able to achieve it. It's also one of the better hit scan maps to have. Having Barrage can help lock down someone like Tiberius just around a corner. If you're able to clip him at the very end, then it opens up so much room for him, and I think Victor is a huge pushing power and point power on this map.
See, they locked in the Atlas and the Tiberius on the side of Carnage Gaming, but I think people can tell where my eyes are looking right now on the side of Parallax Gaming. It is a Dredge is what they're going to lock down for the Ice Mines map, along with Corvus and Fernando. You're talking about how they wanted to try and slow things down if you're playing on the side of Carnage Gaming by picking Ice Mines, but with what Parallax have drafted already, I don't know if they're going to take their foot off the gas, even on this map with a Dredge being coupled on their team. How do you feel like this fares on Ice Mines?
Well, I'm sorry for Carnage Gaming fans out there, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, Victor Dredge, this is like, for those two, this is like one of the few maps that Dredge can run where he looks really good. One of Victor's best maps. It's one that's pretty good for Xin there as well. Corvus, I'm still getting the competitive opinion on, right? I've seen him throughout all these games when you play him. He either works or he doesn't, but I think here it's going to line up incredibly well with, say, Kraken and Barrage. So those are three synergistic ults all in one. And this is one of Fernando's best maps, and that's before he was buffed. Now he's really good, and you're picking him up. I think this is looking good for Parallax. The only downside is that it is double tank on Carnage, so you have to burn through Inara, and you gave up that Atlas, so that's going to cause a big shakeup.
Yeah, it is going to be very, very hard for them to deal with. That is for sure. I mean, the Dredge, maybe you'll have a little bit less of a problem with him maybe spamming Barn or any sort of situation like that. The Divider might pose more of a threat, like you were saying, Gore. The Atlas might be a little bit too much, but we can only tell when the match actually starts. Here we are on Ice Mines, and I'll be really, really interested to see everything it is that we've talked about really being set into motion here, because like we said before, Ice Mines is supposed to be the great equalizer, right? But when you have a draft like this, it's hard to argue if it's going to equalize anything, but going Scuttle right now, very, very interesting. And I think that'll be okay for Ice Mines, personally.
I really like Scuttle, and it just depends on what kind of playstyle you're going to go for. And for this, I think Aspexy is hitting a different mark, which is you're up against two tanks, and where are you going to suffer? Point control. So what is Dredge going to bring with Scuttle? Complete point control. Good luck trying to stand anywhere he decides you can't, because he will just blow you up. I mean, already inadvertently hitting this Inara for enough damage to make her have at least second thoughts about standing in the side room.
Exactly, and Talus tries to dive, but then almost instantly has to back out due to the Dredge grenades. Everyone's standing in Barn, which is where Dredge kind of wants you to be. You see everybody gets brought low, and then they end up getting the pick. Kronz is gone, but look at everybody else. They were grouping up in Barn and taking so much damage from that in that entire scenario. Now they've lost point control. Now they've lost Rachel. Now they've lost Ares, and the Inara has to wait for everybody to get back.
And what I love is Aspexy's playing this like very aggressively, but I love how aggressive it is because he's daring you to walk forward. Yeah, you might be able to deal with the Dredge, but you're going to have to go through him, and by the time you're done with him, you're at half health or lower. Good luck getting through the other four members of Parallax after that. So right now, their best bet is point touches with Talus, maybe even sometimes having to throw Ying in there to get something done because it just doesn't look like this is going to be a clean fight.
Oof, yeah, I mean, they're trading out 2 for 2, which is a good look if you're on the side of Carnage Gaming, and Govrin is actually going to find another pick, but at the same time, you're sitting at 99% for Parallax Gaming. They've got the kills. Now they've swapped everything. Kronz, it just went down. So that means that Aspexy has to back up in forfeit percentage on the point to Carnage Gaming, but he's sure going to make sure that he is not going to try and let them stand on there for free. Still spamming around that corner as Ares tries to take up another spot for more and more aggression on the side of Carnage Gaming.
I'm surprised they've been able to get this aggressive. This is a really good point fight for Carnage, but holding on to it's going to be difficult, especially with Kraken coming online.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Yeah, they ended up using the Carnage. They ended up using the Kraken. Excuse me. To try and keep them off of point, but all they did was sit on point the entire time. Now we have the ultimate being brought out from Ares as well, trying to be a little bit more aggressive. It takes the rune all the way back to where he was before. Crimson ends up getting pushed off of the side just for a little bit, and Ares is going to be taken down as well. My goodness, and I just want to bring this up. Victor used the barrage, but both Atlas and Talus dodged all 3 shots of it, so it didn't get any value whatsoever, which made it easier for them to try and control high ground.
And that's what came through. I mean, 2 big ults for Parallax Gaming, 2 big whiffs. I mean, Kraken was on point, but it didn't cover it enough, so Inara was able to just step to the other side, ignore the damage that it was doing, and still capture the objective. Then alongside all of that, you also get the barrage not connecting. You didn't have enough of a turnaround there for Parallax, even though you had the big ults online. Now you're causing a lot of trouble. I mean, it's one of the worst cases you can be in game, right? If Mittal doesn't go down there, then I think we're looking at a steady 1.5 minutes where Parallax are controlling. And honestly, kind of looks that way anyway, as of right now. Like, the damage is all in their favor. It's just one misstep in a fight that costs them a lot overall. I guess technically 2. You have 1 that loses you the point, and then 1 that keeps it in favor of Carnage. But since then, it's just been pure dominance.
Well, you already have a Spexy pretty much plugging as much damage as he can into different targets in multiple different angles. Like, he is just holding down that left click, and whenever he needs to reload, you can bet he is doing tons more damage than he was before. Ares is going to be taken out by Mittal, trying to flank around on the side, or at least watch that long walkway to make sure that he is not that no one gets past him. That way that he can hold his ground even better with 35 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, Yomi's in at that angle is going to be able to find any dismounts. In the event, for some reason, anyone on Carnage Gaming at that point isn't already dismounted. But Fawn, look at the payload. I mean, it's sitting right back where it spawned. It's going to take a long time to push this. Even if you can get to it right now as Carnage Gaming, that means all of this has to be done in overtime, and that means you have to play perfectly. And Carnage, or I should say Parallax, are not giving you any space to play even close to perfect. I mean, you just aren't able to get to that point yet because of the fact that Parallax are on top of you.
Yeah, and I think what's even more messed up about this is the fact that this is only Dredge running Scuttle with Def Hands 1, right? Like, this is still early.
Oh yeah, it's all downhill.
Start coming online. Yeah, yeah. When those, like, this was your chance to try and make sure that you can try and find some even footing for yourself. But now it doesn't seem like it's going to end up being that well for you, or being that good for you, honestly. I can't imagine how it's going to go from this point on, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be that good for Carnage starting now, at this point, as the clock is ticking down and they're still in spawn. What do you feel like they have to do to try to adapt to this Dredge? I mean, like, they've tried to group up. That clearly hasn't worked out for them, so what's the response?
Well, I'm looking at Ares to answer that question for you, where it's just his ult. Yeah. Spexy's undying right now. If you can get on top of the Dredge, you should be able to melt him. The problem is, I think a lot of people are going to be more than willing to react to that ult dropping down on what has been maybe the game saver for them overall. I mean, again, it's just such a huge space denier right now that even though you have the 2 tanks and theoretically should get the advantage off of that, you can't do anything that withstands or requires withstanding the damage from a Spexy.
Yeah, Talus ultimate actually manages to get him out of there. That was cool. Even if Ares did die, that was really, really sick. That Talus ultimate to make sure that he not only dodged the damage, but Scooter coming in, making sure that he can peel for his teammate in case he ends up coming back a little bit earlier than would have been expected. But the only thing is that he just gets sent directly back to spawn with Dentic plugging in some shots into the Inara to try and even things out for their team.
I love the differences. You're watching a Spexy, and it's just loud, you know, like almost like watching a Vietnam documentary, right? You're in the war, you hear bombs, it's all this fight, everybody's right in front of you, flashing colors everywhere. Then you switch back to Dentic, and he's just chilling way back, and he's like completely silent except for his gunshots. So I think it showcases exactly the playstyle they're going for, but it's working out for Dentic right now. Now this barrage is going to be able to come down. Again, it's just extra damage for the team to be able to solidify their grip on this point.
That's 100% true, but Kron's with a double, Mittal with one of his own. That means you're missing 3 members, and the 4th is on his way back to spawn. Scooter's going to get taken out as well with 87% for Parallax Gaming and Climbing. You're going to have a situation where the point is captured, and Parallax are going to keep that cart rolling.
And this is going to be a different run. Carnage Gaming got the payload, but then were immediately knocked back into base. Now you're going to have to withstand this damage that was already pushing you back into your base, but they have even more incentive to get aggressive here, right? So if you can hold this portion, get around this first corner, which I think is one of the more difficult to start off on Ice Mines, then it starts to just fall, I would argue, even more in favor of Carnage Gaming. A big kill onto Kronz, though, I think slowing the game down, but it hasn't stopped him when you get a Spexy getting a double kill.
Everyone's like, no, you can't just keep me off a point like that. You have to think a little bit more. And Spexy's like, haha, dredge grenade, go burr, right? Like that's a situation, right? He's just throwing out. He's just throwing out as much as he possibly can. He's throwing out as much as he can to try and keep control of the point. Just left clicking, chilling, coconut in one hand, left click. It's not even a mouse. He just has one button that just left clicks at that point, right? Just that and the R key. That's all you need in this situation. So, I mean, I don't know, man. They're not being able to stand anywhere where they could possibly want to in this situation, and Talus has to move up, try and put pressure on him, but all he does is get taken out. The Immortal gets utilized, and they end up finding the kill to boot.
Well, now, unfortunately, again, you have to be a tank that tries to withstand the damage of everybody, and with Tiberius being the last one alive, this should be a conversion for Parallax Gaming. And so the question has to fall not on what can Parallax do to win this, because it's that just play that round again, you're going to get there. But what can Carnage do to get back at it? Ares had to use his ult kind of as a disengage to get away from the fight last time, ended up dying right afterward anyway because he was so low. I think there's some combination that you have here between Ares, Gervin, and Crimson that is going to be a winning combination for you. An Ares attack onto someone like a Spexy or Dintic to get rid of them early on in the game, followed up with Crimson's ult to make sure he stays alive, and Gervin's ult to maybe cause a distraction. It can get you some kills. And then, of course, you just have to buy enough time for your tanks to stand there. 2 points down, you got the comeback mechanic. Work with what you have in your favor. Unfortunately, there's a barrage on the other side. Corvus is at 62%. Spexy's at 73% for his ult on the Kraken. Yeah. There's a lot that's going to play against you here if you're Carnage as well.
Yeah, well, everyone decides to go up at least into that little high ground area, into that tunnel to make sure they can flick around on the side. Tal's ult is what's going to start things off directly onto the Victor, and he gets picked off because Rachel was already pushing up on the side. That's what you want to do if you're on the side of Carnage Gaming. That's a beautiful pick for them, and this might change how things are unless your Ares is shooting to a counters. Vital's going to be the one that actually makes sure that he picks off his former teammate, and because of that, he ends up with a double kill. Now, plenty of positioning and plenty of point presence from Mittal and a Spexy every single time. Man, can you imagine working that hard and then all of a sudden you just eat several dredge grenades and now you got a double kill? That's unfortunate if you're on the side of Carnage Gaming, man. I mean, I don't really know what to say about it at this point. All they can do is pretty much try their best, see if they can try and get those picks, but I mean, it's already at 51% right now.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to break. Barrage getting used. You have Corvus ult for a slow, but they get rid of his Spexy. That's going to be a great opener. Unfortunately, Dintic gets out with his life. You have to dive in here. It's now 90-70. They've got a 20% lead on you.
Yeah, maybe Rachel can make it there, but he didn't touch! He just barely made it. The light was there. He wanted to touch. The point was right there. He just wanted to grasp just one single tick, just one toe onto the point, but he couldn't make it. Oh my goodness. That's so unfortunate. Parallax with a 3-0, I guess.
He's just one tick, one step away. If there, like, one moment of hesitation in the last 10 seconds is the difference between that being at least lasting a little bit longer. I still think you're Atlas standing on the point in front of Parallax, so maybe you're not in the game much longer, but I think the fact that you were able to at least get a touch and hold on would have made a difference for them. They definitely felt like they had a little bit of a wave riding for them there for Carnage, but there's not much you can do. You know, again, it looks like the tanks 2-8, 1-9 just weren't able to withstand the pressure from a Spexy at 11, 2, and 17. I think Kron's kind of a sleeper large game for this. I kept seeing his icon show up, but he's not the one getting these double kills, triple kills. He just kind of stood on the point, went 11 and 5, and was very happy to do so.
Yeah, he was pretty much just vibing with his team the entire time. I mean, Spexy was really a lot to say about him in the fact that dredge played a major role, but I'm glad that you mentioned Kronsgore because of the fact that we saw his name, like you said, a couple times up on the kill feed. I mean, he was creating space in his own right. The aggression to be able to rotate with his team meant that he wasn't just trying to play point bot simulator the entire time, right? He wanted to be there. He wanted to be involved in the fights. And in situations like this, where Nar was low, the rest of the team couldn't get to him, but he was able to clean up, and it just cemented their lead.
me 5 seconds ago. Yeah, Kronz wasn't really getting a lot of double kills, triple kills. Highlight. Here's a triple kill Kronz got, by the way. And I think that's just the best way to showcase what they were doing. Everyone on Parallax was doing so well that maybe I overlooked the front line and his presence there, but I think Mitau brought a lot to it. Obviously, Aspexy did because we couldn't stop talking about him. And you got to see the damage. I mean, 108,000, I believe, from the Dredge there, 80,000 from the Victor. That's why they can work well on Ice Mines. They're just going to pump it into you. Whether or not they're getting those kills, it's still 180,000 damage total that you're having to withstand. It's not easy to do, and so I think Parallax are off once again to a fantastic start here this phase, kind of resembling exactly what we expected out of them after their dominant phase 1.
Yeah, I mean, we started things off in Europe earlier today with a 2-3 score with Interstellar versus... I just set myself up for that one, didn't I? I'm not going to say the team name. I'm not even going to worry about it. Brazil being Parallax Gaming and Carnage Gaming that we just saw making it a quick 3-0 in this scenario. I mean, you can't ask for anything else, man. I mean, it was just the fact that they were just on top of their A game today. They just wanted to make sure that they were like, all right, boys, we know what we came in to do. We had a plan. We had the draft to back it up. So let's just go ahead and dust ourselves off with this one and make sure that we can make this a quick 3-0 for everybody.
And there were a lot of good threads that we saw in Carnage Gaming's play, especially in their drafts. I think they just have to alleviate maybe some of the pressure they put on the Barrack to be a solo point tank, but also it's just going to be a showcase of when you go up against some of these other teams. I think you still have a lot of very competitive teams in Brazil, but that's kind of what we saw in Phase 1 was Parallax, everybody else just a little bit below them.
Right.
So I think when we see Carnage up against someone that's not Parallax, we'll get to see them shine and flourish maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, okay. Let's see how everything else is going to go in the North American region immediately after this break. I'm Fawn. That was Gormizer. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching. When we come back from this break, we'll be right into the North American bracket.